Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ever Growing. I'm Sabrina. I'm the CEO of Evergrowth Coaching. Being a leader is hard. There are a lot of fears and lots of challenges working with people. And I'm here to share with you the biggest breakthroughs that I see in my coaching sessions working with 8 to 9 figure CEOs in tech. Now, some of these might be stories in leaders' most vulnerable moments, and some of them might be tactic frameworks and operational things that you can implement right away. And my goal is for you to listen to this podcast, implement a few things, and feel better as a leader and improve your organization in 30 days. So let's dive into the episode today. A lot of times people ask me if I am a CEO who's constantly overwhelmed and I don't have great focus and I feel like I'm just thrashing from one week to the other and I'm completely swamped. What do I do? In my experience, seeing CEOs in this state, there's always a common denominator, and that is fear. At the bottom of your heart, there is something so existential about your company failing or you making a mistake that's gnawing at you, that's creating all this overwhelm. Somehow you believed that the only way through this is by suffering and creating all this overwhelm. Because another reality exists, that is to create wealth and success with ease and flexibility and autonomy. And that's not where a part of you is telling you. So let me give you an example. I recently worked with a CEO who really, really wanted to start a company. And this is maybe their second or third time doing it. So there's like this goal in her mind of achieving this certain revenue milestone to make her feel like I've made it. Now that sounds really great, right? But I dug in a little bit deeper because I saw that that goal was attached with a different sentiment that made her basically work herself to the ground. And I said, like, why is it so important to you and what would happen if you didn't achieve it? That conversation got really, really heavy. And she said, well, then it would mean I'm worthless, essentially, because nobody believed in me. I had so many things against me. All these investors doubted me. And if I don't get to this milestone, then why did I do all of this for? I just disappointed everyone. So of course, anything that happened at work, right? Whether it's, her head of recruiting quitting or a customer churning, is sent her down into an overwhelmed drive. She's thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be worthless on some level. And she's grasping towards all the tasks that she could do, whether they're going to take her somewhere or not, and just doing them. And she's constantly overwhelmed because she's constantly fighting against, am I worthless or am I worth something? And that's a really, really scary thing to be constantly grappling about. And it's a scary thing to let others decide for you. So when this happens, one of my first priorities in working with the CEO is to help them decide who gets to decide their self-worth. That's a trick question because I have a perspective. We get to decide our self-worth. Self-worth is an internal thing that nobody else can determine for you. And when you have that sense of innate self-worth, you can look at life's challenges in a much more resilient way, in a much more centered way. If you're feeling similarly to the CEO, then I would just invite you to sit for a second and take a step back. Look at all of your behaviors. Look at how you're feeling from a day to day and ask yourself, is this something you want to continue or not? And if you want to change, then ask yourself, what is that thing that I'm most afraid of? And if you have a few answers, you can try to journal it down. Then we are able to move on to the second step. The first step that I was just really describing is having awareness in what is driving the overwhelm. What assumptions are you making? What are you afraid of? The second step is accepting the worst case scenario and still being okay. Taking the same example, the CEO who's afraid of becoming worthless, of becoming a disappointment and a laughingstock to people around her. We took it there. And I held a space to invite her to talk about what if the company fails and what if people are laughing at her and what if people are disappointed at her. What then? I know it's a very uncomfortable conversation to even imagine, but she went there and I applaud her courage to do so. And she said, well, it would really suck, but I would just try again. I guess I really do like building companies, and I still have my family. I still have my best friends. I still have my partner. I still have my mind and my body, and I would just figure something out again. And I could see that in her embracing that worst case scenario, her shoulders kind of relaxed a little bit. And that's like the wisdom of embracing the worst case scenario. If you're able to really articulate what's at the end of that fear and you're okay with it and you have solutions after it, then is it the worst case scenario or no? If you're not having a solution and accepting the worst case scenario, you are almost driven by a ghost of a fear, something very unclear that's controlling all of your behaviors and controlling your overwhelm. But if you have it clearly put out and you said, hey, you know what, it's going to suck, but I have a way through it, and it's simply a circumstance to avoid. And if you get there, you'll be okay anyways. That's like really the mindset type of work. Tactically, I also have a few recommendations if you're really overwhelmed. One is look at your calendar and try to work your calendar in a way that you have ample rest and deep work time. And everybody's personality and the things that they need is different. Some people love to have meetings. Some people hate to have meetings. You really have to workshop your calendar so it's optimal for you. And the common objection that I will get is, well, that's going to slow me down. Maybe in the short term, but if you're burned out, it's going to slow you down even more. What we're trying to create is a sustainable schedule that allows you to achieve the maximum result in the long run of time. Cumulatively, you'll fare a lot better if your schedule is set up for your energy. This might mean completely no meetings days, once or twice a week. This might mean cutting out all unnecessary meetings. And speaking of cutting out, to my second point of tactical feedback, which is saying no. Look at the things that you've said yes to and prioritize them to highest to the lowest impact, and cut down 10 to 30% of the lowest impact priorities. This is really hard to do. When I ask people to do it, I often get pushback. But if they go through with it, they will often come back and thank me and say, oh my goodness, I'm achieving 10, 20, 30, 50% more in my top highest priority items in terms of the outcome. It is so worth it. Actually, the company didn't break when I dropped off those low priority items or assigned them to something else. Now, the third tactical feedback that I have is asking for help. Ask for help from your friends, your partner, people in your life when you need someone to vent to, when you need someone to talk to, or if you just need to be fed once in a while when you're really busy, right? Think about all the ways to let people in your personal life to support you. Now, this applies in your workplace as well. A lot of CEOs don't want to ask for help from their teammates because they will say, well, they're already busy. What I suggest them to do is a little bit of a give and take. If I give you this thing to delegate to, can I also ask you to delegate some more of your things to someone below you? Or I'll help you prioritize the lowest things. So this way, what you're asking the whole company to do is better focus, more prioritization, and working on fewer things with better results. So I can actually share a specific example when CEOs pushed back on cutting out the lowest priority items and how that went. So this is not the first time I raised this with the CEO. Maybe it was the third or the fourth time that we looked at his plate of things and agreed that he was way overwhelmed. And he pushed back on cutting out. But the next time we meet, he will say again, hey, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. My family is saying that I'm not present with them. I just can't do this anymore. I'm thinking about even leaving my company. I'm so burned out. Eventually, we got to that final conversation where I laid out to him and I said, look, I suggest this, and it may not be a good idea, but you're resistant to any change and you create the same result of overwhelm again and again, and you don't want this overwhelm and you know where it'll lead. Tell me, where do you think it'll lead? So he actually sat down and said, well, I know that nothing is going to change and I might have to leave the company and my partner might be super mad at me or even leave me, and that's not the result that I want. So then I asked him, what is the result that you do want? And he said, well, I want to feel happy about my company again. I did feel that fire and I want to be present. I want to be home at 5 p.m. and have dinner with my family. And then if I have to do work, I'll pick it up again. But I need to have this time and space for myself. And then I proposed it again to him and I said, hey, it's not rocket science. You have 24 hours in a day. You have X amount of hours that you're dedicating to work. It's overflowing. What do you think we need to do? And then he finally said, well, I think we need to cut down. And I could still feel his discomfort around it. And I completely understand it. It's so human. But with every single thing that he cut down, we talked about who's going to take over it, how he is going to talk to that person and help that person, when he's going to have those conversations. So in coaching sessions, I really believe in paving the path for the clients to be able to smoothly do the action. We already played the scenario in detail in their mind again, so that in reality, they can just, don't even think about it that much and do it. So he eventually didn't. And when he came back, he said, well, you know what? My team didn't push back that much. And actually, they're doing an okay job. It's not as good as I would have done it, but it's moving forward. And man, I am just so happy not having to think about project A and project B and project C. So it's not even the time that he spent, but the mental bandwidth of holding projects that he didn't even want to do that was freed up, that allowed him to feel like he could take a few more breaths. Now, we implemented a lot more changes over months and months of time to get him to a place of feeling like he could like his job again and then love his job again. But if you're in that place, just know that every single change that you will make you feel better, and it could take a lot of time and a lot of change.